We're back.
We're back.
Rule number 8 from Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. And rule number 8 is tell the truth or at least don't lie. Very simple and straightforward, right?
It is.
So tell the truth or at least don't lie. Why is this such a difficult thing for us?
I think it's very difficult because, I remember growing up hearing in my household, it's a little white lie. It's a little thing, you don't want to hurt somebody's feeling. You want to
Right,
go along with the flow. Um, if a person wants to go to one particular place, it's not a big deal. Okay? Let's just go along with the flow. And I remember that all the time, you know.
yeah.
You didn't want to hurt someone's feeling was the one that I heard a lot. And
So
so
you just say a little white
it,
lie, a fib.
that's right. No harm done. That's what I, heard growing up.
And it you do it to not stir up any problems.
Correct.
But it's, according to Jordan Peterson, very problematic
It is, according to him.
because he believes that the biggest lie is made up of, within it is the smallest lie
Correct.
that compounds, it builds and builds and builds.
Yeah. And in the chapter, as you go through it, um, he says, correct. The big light is made up of little lies, but if you go along with it and you don't stop and say what's on your mind, say the truth, let's say, then little by little you're chipping away at your character. And there will come a point where not only you don't know how to say no, but the people around you don't know how to say no. And that's when the big crimes, according to him, occur, like that Gulag archipelago.
Stalin.
Yeah, he said, in the prison camp, if the guards didn't like what was going on, and if they didn't say no and they went along with it, each action got worse and worse and worse. And so,
Oh, you that the Soviet guards didn't say no to the command, let's
to
say,
a command or something,
what was being said. Yeah.
right? So,
That part was interesting to me because um so your experience, our family experience, was that communism came into Cuba, and that happened in 59, the year you were born. uh, your mom was very outspoken, and she would speak out when she didn't like things that were taking place, which caused her a lot of trouble.
yes,
Other people rather not say anything and just be under the radar. Peterson talked. He gave the example. It's like a fish in the middle of a school of fish. You're just in hiding, kind of thing.
mm-hmm.
You don't want to stand out. You don't want to stir up anything. But grandma was somewhat the opposite, which led to a lot of issues.
Correct.
So what is the right, because one of the potential things that can happen is you stand up and you get killed.
That's right.
And that was the fear, that if you said something bad about Castro in
Oh,
Cuba,
you couldn't.
you couldn't
You
because
couldn't.
you would
You'd be
get killed.
taken away in the middle of the night, at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. A brigade would come and, you know, knock at your door. And if you didn't open the door, they knock your door down and they go in there and take you. And
Remove all opposition.
you would be history. You'd be bye bye.
And that's the risk. And I think that's why a lot of people just, they don't say no.
Correct. Because the fear
The fear.
of the the reciprocal, or the fear of what could happen to you if you did it.
Right.
I mean, burning the Cuban flag in Cuba was unheard of. And how many times have we seen, unfortunately, the burning of the American flag in our country,
Yeah.
in our soil? Um, Over there, you did that, and you can kiss yourself goodbye. because there's just not anything that would
Yeah.
they wouldn't put up with it. There was an extreme pride with the flag, the country, the revolution. The revolution was everything. The revolution was bigger than the individual and the
Right.
individual cause.
And that's what led to, and Peterson brings it up in the Soviets and in other communist dictatorships, that people turn in their family,
Correct.
people turn in loved ones, friends, anything, because it's for the greater cause, let's say.
That's right. So it created a lot of division, a lot of anxiety, a lot of, unfortunately, you have brother against brother, son against father,
Mm-hmm.
because the beliefs were different. And so, yeah, it was a rough time, man.
Yeah.
It was a rough time.
Yeah.
They created this divisiveness between the families, and they created all kinds of issues,
Yeah.
arguments, fights.
But the reason I brought it up was because some people just kept quiet,
Mm-hmm.
others would speak out and speak their truth and say, no, I'm not in agreement with that. And I think that's what Peterson's talking about, is that when you do that, and he gave the example of a drunk neighbor that would come over at middle of the night to
Yeah,
try and sell him
a
something,
microwave.
a microwave or whatever, just to get money for his drinking or
Correct.
drugs,
To buy more alcohol.
to buy more alcohol. And it got to a point where Peterson says that he's had to stand up to this biker guy, neighbor, and say, "Look," and tell him the truth. You scare us when you come over at this time. You're scaring my wife, me, and I'm not gonna buy this from you because you're gonna use the money and go buy alcohol. And I thought that was interesting because that could have gone really bad
Of
for
course,
Peterson.
he was a big old biker,
Yeah,
and Peterson, he's an intellectual. So, I mean, there's a lot of intellectuals that are very well fit, but if you know Peterson, he's thin,
yeah.
tall, right? So, one blow, and he's gone uh,
But
into La La Land.
and that's the risk that one takes in telling the truth, is that it could lead to will lead to conflict.
Right. And he says the guy who stood there for about 15 seconds, way too long, and then he finally said, "Okay, that's I understand."
Yeah.
You know, and who do okay, I understand what Peterson is saying, and I agree with him in theory,
Right.
okay? But I am one to try to avoid conflict. I avoid conflict at all costs, sometimes at my own sacrifice. So Peter would argue, you're doing the wrong thing, Pablo. You're not doing the right thing, because the right thing is to tell the truth, or at least don't lie. So I want to avoid conflict. So let's say, who do you tell the truth to? Where do you differentiate an age group? Like if I'm dealing with my grandkids, you know, and it's something that I need to prove a point with a 9-year old, a 10-year old, an 11-year old, when do you differentiate the age group? Because, tell the truth, right? Somebody believes in Santa Claus. Oh, no, no, there's no Santa Claus? I don't know.
Yeah.
In some parts of the world, there is no Santa Claus, you know? And so do you break the dreams of a child, or, so when? So if you're a teenager, okay? I think teenage years are very tough, especially in our country, you know? And so, because we have so much to give, and people have a lot of time on their hands. And so, uh,
So you're saying there are times where maybe with like a kid or something, you don't tell the truth. Yeah.
what am I going to tell them? No, there's no Santa Claus.
Right. Right.
I mean, I know it sounds silly, okay? But always tell the truth. And then what if you're going to hurt somebody's feeling, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody that it's going through a very tough time, okay?
Mm-hmm.
A little,
No,
The book says, don't lie, tell the truth always.
yeah.
Okay?
No, but you're bringing up a good point. Real, that's theory. And then real life scenarios.
I mean, somebody's sick and you want to maintain hope for a person. You give them a little white lie that may carry them through a very difficult time in their lives. But you're the one that provided a little light at the end of the tunnel. Do you say, hey, this is the way it is or whatever? What if somebody's going through cancer or somebody lost a loved one? And is compassion, do you lie as part of compassion? These are very difficult questions for me. This
So
book is difficult for me.
it's interesting you bring that up because let's say that somebody really had 6 months left to live. Would it depends on the person. Would they want to know they have 6 months left so that they can arrange everything, or be told a lie that, oh, things seem to be okay? I don't know what the answer is,
Neither do I,
but
but I would want to know.
yeah.
Now,
And
I know a couple of people that would tell me, lie to me. Go ahead and lie to me.
we were told the other day that there was a lady older who was diagnosed and with, I forgot what it was. She knew that she didn't want to go to the hospital anymore, and so she planned a last dinner and everything,
Oh, that's right.
and she let everybody know this is the last time. She dressed up, and she was okay with that. It was like her goodbye, you know, to everybody. She made the meals that she loved to make and her family loved, cooked all of that, and that
Yeah.
was her goodbye. And soon after, she passed away.
In Cuba, she was a very good cook. She was a very good cook here.
Yeah.
And she made a last meal. And wow.
So I just don't know.
Well, let me share something with you
Yeah.
that was a big, big contrast with us when we moved to the United States. In Cuba, the doctors would not, I'm pretty sure I'm correct on this. In Cuba, the doctors would not tell 80-year-old plus man or woman, hey, you got 6 months to live. I think that was considered cruel in my country. They would tell the family, hey, he's very delicate, he doesn't have much time. But they would not necessarily confront the patient and tell him, hey, you got 6 months to live. And the reason I'm saying this, and I left when I was very young, I left when I was 8 years old, is because I remember growing up here in the United States and family members getting sick and the doctors here telling them, hey, you got this, you got this. And I remember conversations in the household saying, hey, that's cold. That's very harsh for a doctor to say to somebody this and that. And that was a contrast in culture
What about
growing up.
what about in, let's say, like the Dominican Republic? You spent some time there.
I did.
Was it also that way, where like in the hospital setting, they would hit you kind of like they do here?
I saw both actually.
Oh, okay.
I saw a doctor that was it depended on the
I'm
doctor.
the doctor,
Okay.
yeah.
I would I would think that the family geared more towards, let me take care of it. If you got something really, really bad to say, tell me, and I'm gonna take care of my mom or whatever. I'm gonna make the last 6 months, 1 year, 2 year, whatever it may be, very, very enjoyable for my mom or my dad.
Yeah.
So I would say it would lean towards, hey, don't let him know. But I did see some doctors, um, surgeons, that would come forth and say, hey, this is what you got.
Mm,
You know, you better take care of your affairs. And, everything has its balance because if let's say you're a businessman or let's say
yeah.
you have an engineering degree, you're running a business, you want to know.
Yeah.
You want to get your affairs in order. Otherwise, you leave a mess for your family.
Right, right.
Depending on the degree of specialization that you have. If you're an architect, a lawyer, an engineer,
Yeah.
and or anybody for that matter, anybody really, you want to get. So I see the value in both.
Yeah.
I'll
No,
tell you
it's
one thing.
difficult.
My dad, um, he had way at the end of his life, he had they discovered that he had prostate cancer. Okay, but he had a few other issues wrong with him. And the doctor was going to tell him, the surgeon, I had a meeting with the surgeon. He says, I have to tell your father he's got prostate cancer and we need to operate. And I said, you're going to operate on an 80 something year old man that's got bradycardia, it's, slow heart. He's got this, that, high blood pressure. He's taking, you want to stabilize an 80 something year old man to, um, cut a portion of his prostate out, or, the cancer probably is not going to kill him. He's probably going to die of something else. And it's a very difficult decision that the family may be in, and you may
Yeah.
need to huddle up and with everybody and get a consensus of what it is that you want to do moving forward. There lies all the stuff and the legalities, the documents that have to be signed
Right.
for you to make a decision. If people don't want to be resuscitated, I mean, it's a mess.
Yeah.
It really,
But you do but you got to figure out
whether
in
you
that
tell the
instance
truth or
whether
not
you,
lie.
or and that gets into what Peterson's saying is omission versus commission. Commission would be,
Well, I
hey,
had an issue with that, so yeah.
yeah, commission is, your
Where is that?
commission
Okay.
of the truth, like your,
Omission was let some you in omission you let something happen when you could have stopped it.
mm,
That's omission. And commission is when you do something and you know that you're doing something wrong.
yeah, yeah. So you let something happen. And Peter,
Omission is you let
omission,
something happen and you know that it's bad and you could have stopped it.
which personally I've always thought, oh, that's not as bad as like actively lying. Peterson is arguing, basically saying they're both very bad.
He's saying they're both very bad. And but he did cite psychologists that said that the sin of commission is worse.
Right, right. Um,
Yeah,
what?
but the omission is just as bad, really. You let something bad happen when you could have stopped it.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Those are, and the examples he's giving of that is the people that, let's say, didn't say no,
Right.
right? The people in, um, the soldiers in the Soviet or the concentration camps in Germany and all that stuff that didn't say no and go against, uh, what they thought was wrong. Now, one thing I thought was really interesting, he brought up the point and he said, he talked about you weaken your character and
Yes.
that leads to doing terrible things. But that the other thing was I thought was cool is that it said that that when you learn something new, you're actually turn becoming a new person,
Correct.
and that you're literally becoming a new person when, let's say, you accept new ideas and new truths. So if you are somebody that is through omission allowing bad things to occur or allowing for not the truth to come through, you're going to become somebody, and you don't say no, you become a new person who doesn't say no. That's the
Right.
person
You
you
get
become.
used to going along with the flow,
Yeah,
and then there becomes a moment where you don't know how to say no.
right. And he's talking about actually the gene gets expressed. A new gene gets expressed when you are, or a gene gets expressed, turned on, let's say, when you learn something new.
Okay. So the way that works, from what I understand, and we're no experts, you guys look this up, and he didn't go into it this deep, but I've read something before. The way that you actually change is by putting yourself in a new or different situation that you are accustomed.
Mm-hmm.
It's not by learning a chapter in a book. Is you need to put yourself in a situation that is a different atmosphere, okay? Let's say outside of your house, and you're doing something totally different, but you have to manually be involved in this action, whether it is you go to the forest and you cut a tree, you become a lumberjack for a week, okay?
Yeah.
That's when
You learn a new language,
you learn a new language,
a new instrument.
a new instrument.
These are things that they express your mind is literally changing
Correct. So what it is your
your brain.
DNA, there's new protein that gets built, and protein is the basis of building the structure. So what he's saying is, look, you actually become another person,
Right.
and you lead your life in potentially a new direction.
Right.
Okay? So it's not like just reading a book at home sitting on the couch. I don't think. I could be wrong on this, guys, ladies. But I think that you have to involve many of the senses. Touch, smell, see, act. You have to do some physically. Um, this is what I think.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And I hope I'm not wrong in this because he doesn't go
He
into
doesn't
that.
go into that. He's just saying that you'll become that person.
Right. And he's talking about, well, and it's very interesting. And if we bring it to, for example, the reality, for example, I had read something where, let's say that you have a husband and a wife, newlyweds, and they have their first baby, okay, the first baby girl. You shield that baby girl from, you know, any dangers that could come her way.
Hmm.
And what he said in the previous one is you're not doing that baby a favor. If that baby falls down, let that baby get up on its own.
Right.
Don't rush necessarily to, let them be themselves because they're going to learn. They're going to become a different person by, on their own. Okay. And so, I mean, this is very interesting.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Another thing I thought was powerful was this is a quote from the book. He says, "Don't lie, especially to yourself." And that one, I used to think it took me back to when I was working later hours, much later, and I would get to the office, let's say early, and then I would leave the office later, and a lot of people would be like, "Man, you're working so hard. You're doing so much, this and that." But then at the end, but I would leave the office and think, I wasn't productive. I wasn't that productive. Even though I was there for a long period of time, I wasn't that productive.
Right.
So when people would say that, I could pretend, yeah, oh, I'm working a lot and this and that. But that's lying to myself.
Okay, well, there's two things
And you can fool, just to finish the thought, you can lie, you
to
can fool
yourself.
other people, but at the end of the day, you yourself know you haven't been productive.
Correct. And he also says, the man that lies know that he's lying when he's lying
Yes, in that moment.
in that moment.
Yes.
So he's saying, don't do it. The man that lies, he knows he's lying when he's lying.
Yes. Now,
You're committing a lie.
yes, and the example he gave was that that person can later on actually believe the lie, forget the lie. They forget that they lied,
Right.
but in the moment that they lied, they knew they were lying.
Right. So then to go back to the other thing, and then I'll go to mention something. He says, the untruth corrupts the soul. A mother that shields a child from all harshness and disappointment, okay, can go to the extreme of this child becomes so dependent, this child does not marry, and the mother is fine with them, and then it ends up being the mother is never alone, but the child is in the basement all messed up, um, with feelings of regret. And he says this becomes a wicked and evil situation.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because then he begins to fantasize with I forgot what he said, like, you know, terrible thoughts, and sometimes they act on them.
Sometimes they act on it.
But it started with, in that situation, the mom that was selfish. She didn't want her son to leave her, right?
Yeah.
So she kept him. It reminds me, we had a family member, distant family member, that the mom, anytime that the daughters would bring somebody to the house to introduce or wanted to date
A young
somebody,
man, yeah.
yeah, a man, the man was
The,
never good enough for the daughters.
right. The mom never liked him.
Never liked him, and so these two daughters ended up
Never married.
living to their late 90s, actually,
Correct.
but never married. And the story I remember hearing from you and grandma and everything was, it was because the mom
Nobody was ever good enough for her.
was never good enough. So, but according in this example, Peterson's saying that the mom is being selfish.
Eh, No, he's saying she's being wicked and evil.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he's brutal
Because she wants to keep the kid to
to
themselves.
themselves. Yeah, selfish. Yeah, no, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Um, yes, he says that the small lies end up corrupting the world, and the small lies end up forming and contributing to a huge, big lie. And then many more come. You need to lie to cover the previous lie, and you need to lie. You essentially you're not gonna know when you're telling the truth,
Mm-hmm.
if you are indeed. I mean, it's
I remember asking, or this came up in conversation with the family, and my sister-in-law one time, I brought up, man, how does somebody get so involved into something like that? And this had to do with, like, it had to do with some, like, cartel or something like that. I don't remember what. And she brought up the point. She says, well, it starts with a small favor that they ask for you, of you, and it's something wrong, let's say, but it's small. And then they come with another one. It's a little bit bigger, and another one. And then before you know it, you're neck deep. So it starts with the small one. I'm even playing chess with one of my nephews, and I can tell he's moving more than one piece. So I say, hey, you know, that it's only one piece, and I know that he's just testing the boundary and figure, he wants to win the game and everything. But you have to correct that, I think, behavior, because it could start with, let me just cheat in the game of chess or whatever game you're playing. And then it applies to, well, let me do that in other aspects of life. Maybe I'm taking it too far.
no, you know what? Some people would think you are, and if you told me that 20 years ago, I would be one thinking, it's just a chess game, man. What are you
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah.
But it's not.
It's not. When I look away, I see he's moving a couple other things. I say, hey, what's going on here?
Right,
So I have to address it.
right.
You could only move, and then he puts it back. But he's testing. He's
That's
testing.
very interesting. Very interesting.
So
You need to stop that. You don't, because then, um, yeah, they can
then you
take it
think they
to
can get
another.
away with it?
They can get away with it here, and they can get away with it out there. And he even talked about, if you're playing the game, it's because the game is important enough for you to play it. And you need to commemorate to the rules of the game. Um, if you follow the rules of the game and you make a move and it ends up hurting you, then by definition, it's not a good
It was a
move.
bad move.
It was a
Yeah.
bad move. So, so what can happen in your situation? Well, he's your nephew, and he might think, oh, this is the strict uncle, or this is the uncle that doesn't let me get one by him,
Yeah.
or or maybe he'll say, I need to be on my best to beat him, and maybe he will develop more respect for you. You just never know how they're going to react.
Yeah.
But I'm with Peterson at this age in my life. I'm saying, do it. don't let him make more than one move because that's not what the rules say.
Yeah.
You're gonna if you come to a light and it's red, you stop. If you come to the light and it's green, that means you can go. You can't come to a light that's red and continue because then there's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
So there'll be circumstances, repercussions.
Yeah.
So in this case, 20 years ago, I might have said, it's just a chess game, like
Y-
one of those little white lines. So see, you just proved me wrong.
but
You
it's
just proved me wrong.
like you said, in practice, like in real life, you go to a store, you buy groceries, they give you cash change. You pay with cash, they give you change, and they give you more than they needed to give you.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the real life things, and one could say that's a really small thing, but I've accepted more before, personally.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because at the end of each chapter, Peterson gets into like how do we actually take the information and then put it into practice in real life. So he's just saying just start with telling the truth, and then I guess dealing with some of the conflict consequences that will come from it. Start with being truthful to yourself. When what are you doing when people aren't looking? Are you
Right.
still living a life of character,
Right.
or are you doing little things that are chipping away at you?
He says that not telling the truth chips away at your character, and
Right.
that when destiny brings you a tough time, that you're going to get mowed over because you don't have the character to withstand what life is throwing at you. So he's saying, because he says the truth feeds and clothes the world. The truth is the light in the darkness. The truth clothes the world. It keeps your soul from dying. I mean, and the truth improves your life. By not saying the truth, you chip away at your character. And he says, the untruth corrupts your soul, and one untruth feeds another. So, what he's saying is, look, no matter how hard it is, you should practice telling the truth. And he says that he's guilty of not doing it because he wanted to reach certain status or he wanted to impress somebody, and he gives the example of the student in class who disagrees with the professor's premise, and now he's got to do write
An
up
essay.
an essay. But what does he do? Does he put his own ideas down that are in contrary to what the professor is saying and ends up getting an F in class
Hmm.
or a D? He doesn't pass. Or does he agree with the professor's premise, even though inside of himself he knows that um, that's not who I am?
Right.
Okay? And so you have so much conflict today with colleges, okay?
Yeah.
That they're saying that colleges are teaching this thing and that other thing and whatever. And so if your professor says one thing and you are trying to say another, what do you do? Do you take an F for the class? It could mess up all kinds of stuff, right? So, according to Peterson, the right thing to do would be to put your ideas down on paper,
Hmm.
even if they conflict with your professor,
Right.
and let the battle begin. Because that's going to take you in a direction where your soul and your character will be preserved
It's be intact.
intact. And
Yep.
anything that life throws at you, you would have gained that strength to move forward.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what he's saying. It's it's hard to do, okay? It I can see how conflict I mean, it's hard to do.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
what he's saying.
Yeah. And if you just want to pass, move up in a corporate setting, you allow these things, you either tell lies or allow, um, oh, by omission, things to happen. And that little by little erodes your character. And then maybe, sometimes we look at people and we're like, how did they become that way? And it's probably by living a life of over and over not being truthful, which I'm guilty of too,
Me
in
too.
certain instances.
I did it yesterday.
Yeah, that's why I think,
I did it yesterday. I didn't feel like doing something, and this idea came up, and most of the people around me were for it, but I didn't feel it, but I said, oh yeah,
not
this,
yesterday, I think a couple days ago.
yeah, a couple days ago.
But yeah, there you go. Speak
Not
your truth,
yesterday, the
speak your
day before
speak
yesterday.
your truth.
Yeah,
But you'll have some conflict with that, and that's the thing. Maybe I think just prepping ourselves, like, look, I'm gonna be honest here. I'm gonna tell the truth, but I am gonna have to deal with, let's say, the consequences of it.
right.
And that's okay.
Well, you mentioned before that you would avoid conflict, right? Uh, because we've gone through a couple of books and the other or the chapter and it said if you not telling what you think is being a lie. Remember you were making a comment about that? I don't know if you remember or not. I'm not putting you on the spot, but
Um,
do you remember what we were talking about? I mean,
well,
Jordan Peterson was
actually,
saying if you don't bring
in this chapter, he brings that up, that if you don't say what you think,
it's a
that
sin
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah, it's a sin.
so
Yeah, if
when
you
it
don't speak up when you think something is wrong, and he gave the example of even like a somebody in the workplace that's asking you to do things that you don't have to do, you don't need to do, or want to do, or it's not necessarily not want to do, but it's not like something that's right, and you don't say anything, you don't
so
speak
what do you
up.
do
And
with things
well,
oh,
when you speak up, though, you may just also have the support of other people that are thinking the same thing but didn't speak up also.
okay, so those people may come forward because they see your strength of character and you're facing the fire, and they're gonna say, "Well, I think like this guy."
Yes.
So, what do you do in the case of, let's say, hot topics like politics and religion?
Yeah.
What do you do with those? You know, because um,
You
I
speak what's on your mind.
well, I find myself not necessarily, engaging in that because I don't want to travel the road that it's going to lead me to.
Hmm.
And I think it's not worth it. But then you don't take a stand,
Right.
right?
That is
So are you a coward?
that is a very difficult question. I don't know the
When it
answer.
comes to religion, when it comes to politics, and certain other issues,
Yeah.
I
Does take it
analyze the situation and I think it's not worth the battle maybe, and I continue on my way.
Yeah. I think a lot of those discussions, like with, let's say, friends or family or people that I don't know that they're necessarily like gonna lead to something productive. They're almost, it seems, just more like conflict of ideas, which is okay too if people are willing to do it on debate on, let's say, a respectful basis and actually be willing to hear the other person out. I think that's a good thing. So by not speaking your mind in that instance, you're not allowing for that exchange of ideas to take place. The problem is that I don't know how productive it is. Um, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, it's um it's an interesting thing. And then
Yeah.
back to the comment that you said I've been here all day, but I've been very productive. It reminds me of that video that you,
Not productive. I wasn't productive.
right. I've been here all day and I haven't been productive,
Yeah.
right? Okay. It reminds me of that video that you did when your battery is running out on
Yeah.
your computer and you know you only got 5 minutes left. You get done in 5 minutes what you potentially could have gotten done in 2.5 hours or three. Remember that?
Yeah.
And so the question was, what if you thought, or if you worked on the premise that you only have a battery for 10 minutes, then how productive could you potentially be? Because your computer is going to bank out, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it reminded me of that because I
Yeah.
think that's human nature.
I think it's human nature to procrastinate.
Yeah.
But when you're put in a situation where the juice is about to die on that battery, and you can only open the windows that you need to open because you don't want to waste juice, and you can only open, do the tasks that you have to because it's about to end on you, that timer.
Yeah.
And so you have to be extremely
Yeah.
productive.
You don't have time for Instagram or
You
Facebook
can't
or
be
you
on
can't
you
be
can't
on,
be running music in the background. You can't be doing anything. You
you
just
got to be
yeah,
focused.
yeah,
That reminded me of that you had talked about. Anyway,
yeah.
this is a tremendous book. I mean,
Yes. And
he's
I do kind of disagree in terms of you're saying it's not just in a chapter, because you may pick up something in the chapter, an idea or something that does make you become a new person. You accept a new
okay.
idea. You
All right.
begin to live your life potentially a different way. It's not just that chapter, but it's the way that you now maybe move forward and live your life. Maybe.
Yeah,
Just
if you're reading something and it has a profound effect on you, it will definitely change your life.
yeah, yeah, maybe change your outlook. I mean, the people there's a I don't know. Some people do it in books, some people it's in real life experiences um that form them, and I think it's a combination for some people.
Yeah.
But anything else you want to throw in on
No,
this?
no. Tell the truth or at least don't lie.
Yep.
It's tough.
It's a good um practice.
Yeah,
It's a good rule to live by.
I think so.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.